Hello again. In this video, we'll look at day 2, aka Saturday, June 9th, 2018, of the North Carolina Republican Party Convention from beautiful Hickory, North Carolina. So let me go ahead and look at my notes here, and as always, I take copious notes. And so we'll look at, here we go. We first start off, and I must say that the Saturday morning session in years past, it's been very, you would have maybe half the delegates there. But I gotta tell you, this year I was really encouraged because we had the same number of delegates that attended Friday afternoon were there on Saturday morning. And we may have even had a few more that were there on Saturday morning that were not there on Friday afternoon. So attendance for the Saturday morning session, which is usually pretty bad, was very good this year. So if we started right at 9 o'clock, maybe a couple minutes early actually, and I want to say big thumbs up to Dallas Woodhouse, the executive director of the NCGOP, for getting us on an on-time start. So first we started off with the NC Federation of Teenage Republicans. That was Miss Lauren Brown, and she talked about her time in the TARS, which is short for the Teenage Republicans. She also offered words of encouragement for parents and teenagers. And then we had the Power 2020, John Palermo. I talked about him a lot more on Friday. I'm not going to go into any more details. I kind of think, go watch Friday's video. I don't want to talk about it. Okay, and then we have congressional candidate remarks. First, we have Roger Allison, and I should tell you, all the congressional candidates that they had that speak were running for the first time. There were no quote-unquote incumbents or people already in Washington that were at the convention, the general session of the convention. At the fancy schmancy $100 dinners, yeah, there were some incumbent congressmen from North Carolina at those functions, but the ones that spoke on the Saturday morning session were just the first time running candidates. First one we had was Roger Allison. Now, this is the very first time I've heard Roger speak, and I was very, very impressed with him. He said he's running the 1st congressional district, which is up in the northeast part of the state, generally going from when you look at the district map and you see District 1, it goes from like the Durham area. It's this big kind of blob of slime and gack that goes from Durham, and then it kind of goes around Rocky Mount, and then it kind of goes, it makes its way a little bit up towards Elizabeth City, and kind of goes a little bit down towards Wilson. It's all in that little area. Anyway, Mr. Allison said that the incumbent candidate is a Democrat, G.K. Butterfield. He's been in office since 2004. This is like a D+20 district. It's a very hard district for a Republican to win. However, I will say that Roger Allison's a very strong candidate, and if anybody can pull it off in District 1, it's probably him, in my opinion. He mentioned Bible verse James 1:25. Let's see. Then he said that he supports term limits. He said people that are attorneys are out of touch. I tend to agree with him on that. There are some good attorneys that make good people in Congress, like Ted Cruz and Mike Lee, but yeah, most of them are out of touch. I agree wholeheartedly with that statement. Then he says he's the 9th descendant of Patrick Henry. He's a technology and medical business startup expert. He says he's for work requirements for welfare. Very good. He wants to create economic empowerment zones and no longer and he believes that American citizens should no longer compete with illegals for jobs and housing, and says that the victims, not victors, talk needs to go. So very good. Next candidate for office was Steve Von Lohr, and I will say that Steve, the second time I heard him speak, first time was he was running for vice chair, the state party back in 2017, and I will say that this speech that he gave at the convention was much improved from when he was at the vice chair debate. I mean, Michelle Nix ran circles around Steve at the vice chair debate last year. But here at the 2018 convention, Steve was really, really good. Very well polished. I put that phrase in my notes. Very well polished. Big improvement. Mark Harris was, excuse me, I'm getting ahead of myself. Steve Von Lohr's run for District 4, which, if you look at a map of North Carolina and you see a blue dot right over Raleigh, that's District 4. It's a very Democrat-heavy district, represented by David Price, who I believe has been there since 2000, 2004. It's been there a while, let's put it that way. Next, we have Mark Harris. And this guy right here is really phenomenal. One of my favorite people ever to run for office. He ran, many of you know, most of you probably know this already, but he ran for U.S. Senate in 2014. He placed third behind Tillis and Brannon. And I will say, if it weren't for... I liked Mark Harris in 2014, but I thought Greg Brannon was like a couple decimal points better of a candidate than Mark Harris. But if I had to vote again, go back in time, I would actually change my vote now from Greg Brannon to Mark Harris, because Greg Brannon is a man who, look, very solid on the issues, very strong principled gentleman. However, Greg Brannon is one of those, I call him a fly-by-night candidate. In other words, he's a person who runs for office, and when they don't win the primary, they leave the party, and you never see him at another GOP function again. He basically leaves the party, says, I didn't get my way, woe was me. And basically, just takes shots at everybody from outside the party, leaves the party, and just because he didn't get his way in an election, he decides to be bad cop, So if I had to take the vote in 2014, again, I would now change from Greg Brannon to Mark Harris. Because Mark Harris, even though he did not win the Senate seat in 2014, he was still involved in the party, and he helped other candidates in the party win. He gave a very good speech, and I will say that I'm going to try to not do my best to read his quote, but my allergies, my allergies are really bugging me today, He said, the 9th district is not for sale. The definition of marriage is not for sale. The sanctity of life is not for sale. The military is not for sale. Taking care of our veterans is not for sale. Religious liberty is not for sale. Our borders are not for sale. The Second Amendment is not for sale. And our Republican Party is not for sale. And of course, he got a big clap and stand ovation. It's very good. And Mark Harris, by the way, he's running in the 9th Congressional District, which stretches from the east suburbs of Charlotte and pretty much goes all the way along the Highway 74 corridor until you get just across I-95, I believe into the Lumberton area. That's District 9. Next, we have State Treasurer Dale Folwell, and he started off his speech by saying, "I will never, never, ever give a speech after Mark Harris." Thought that was pretty funny. I put an LOL symbol in my notes, by the way, on that one. He said that we have $50 billion in unfunded health and pensions liabilities. And then the state health plan was $35 million in the red. Promises were made, but no money was there, and that puts us right behind Illinois. So he said there's a lot of tough work that he's doing as treasurer. However, he renegotiated Medicare with no copays, no deductibles, with profit sharing going back to the state of North Carolina. That saved $55 million. He also freezed family premiums for 2018-2019, and said that right now the premiums, a teacher or police officer has to work 5 work days in a month just to pay for their health care premium. So he froze it right at 5 days. And for 2018-2019, hopefully if you're a teacher or cop in North Carolina, it doesn't go over 5. He's the first GOP state treasurer in 140 years. His campaign is $300,000 in debt because he refused to take Wall Street bailouts. So here you have a very, probably in Raleigh, probably my favorite person in the city of Raleigh as far as politicians go, even though Falwell has never, he was a legislature for a little while, but most of his career has been an accountant, CPA. But he's probably my favorite person in Raleigh. He's a very principled, very conservative guy. And he said this quote, the amount of votes I got, I think he said he got more than Trump, got more than Dan Forrest even, was one of the most popular Republicans in the state. 41 cents a vote, compared with $14 a vote was what Trump had for the votes, the cost of the votes. Another thing about Mr. Falwell, trying to think, he has run for lieutenant governor before, so we'll see. Maybe everybody's saying Dan Forrest is quote unquote the guy for the Republicans in 2020 for the governor's race. But I'm not so sure. We'll see. Maybe Falwell will take a shot at it, and he's pretty high up as far as one of my favorite Republicans in North Carolina. Mr. Falwell is a very, very good guy. Another thing I'll say is that the legislature at the time was debating this transportation bond, which was going to basically borrow $300 billion in the next 10 years to upgrade roads in North Carolina. And they would basically borrow this money now and then pay it back with the future revenue that the state collects with gas tax, vehicle taxes, and the vehicle registration fees. And what's the name? Falwell was out in the front and he said, look, this needs to go to the voters and have them decide instead of the legislature passed it. But unfortunately, the legislature passed it and Governor Cooper signed it into law. So the voters are not going to have a say on this. Now, I think it still would have passed. I probably would have voted for it too because interest rates are fairly low right now. And the economy's going good. It's a good time to borrow money. And the terms of the bond sounds like we can pay this off. I mean, even if we have we have a pretty big rainy day fund. I've heard like 13 billion, in rainy day fund. Even if we have some trouble with that bond, we could still pay it off. So, next on the morning session was State Superintendent of Education, Mark Johnson. And when he was running back in 2016, I've heard a lot of things about, if you're a conservative, you're not going to like Mark Johnson, and he's a rhino, and he's friends with Bloomberg, and the kook liberal former mayor now, I guess, up in New York City, because de Blasio, but New York City's the mayor now. But anyway, I must say, this is my first time ever hearing Mark Johnson speak, and he did a very good job. He sounded very conservative. Sounds like he's running a very conservative Board of Education. He said that they're reducing the test and getting money out of Raleigh into the classroom. And they had a unanimous Supreme Court decision that the superintendent of education can be in charge of the State Department of Education. Said there wants to be no more Common Core. Then starting in 2019, they're going to launch an online resource to see full financial transparency. He said now the average teacher in North Carolina makes more than the average median household income in North Carolina. Why are so many people still complaining about teacher pay? I have no idea. Students will be able to identify trades, and they can go to community college or the military, and they're trying to really push students towards, going to trade school, community college, rather than going to a four-year school and graduating with $100,000 in debt and not being able to find a job. Now we have State Insurance Commissioner Mike Halsey. He's the first ever elected Republican to the State Insurance Bureau. He said your homeowner's insurance premium is directly tied to what your fire department rating is. He said there are 1,351 fire stations in North Carolina. There are 5 inspectors for 100 counties, and some had not been inspected in 25 years before Mr. Halsey came on the job last year. And then he said also half of the fire stations in North Carolina had not been inspected in at least a decade. He said that Pamlico, Wilson, and Forsyth counties recently lowered their homeowners insurance rates because the fire department ratings went up. He also said the insurance, only 5 out of the 25 departments in the Insurance Bureau are actually insurance related. He says that Mr. Halsey, regulates building inspectors, collection agencies, and bail bonds. He says we bring in $600 million in revenue for the legislature, and that is grown every year. He said no to a 14-rate increase in auto rates, and that's just 2% increase instead. He also said no to a 40% increase in homeowners insurance on the coast, and instead we have a 5.5 rate increase cap. He's making the business climate competitive and bringing more companies to North Carolina. Then we had a very good video of Governor Dan Forest, and basically talked about his life, a little bit biography, and talked about how he met his wife. And he came probably she was working at a drugstore, and he came in every day for 3 weeks until finally asked her out for 3 weeks straight. Finally, 3 weeks went by, and she said, "Yeah, I'll go out with you, Dan." And they've been in love ever since, married for 20, I think since 91, I believe. Anyway, he said that North Carolina, under his leadership as lieutenant governor, is the first and only state in the USA with high-speed internet in every single public school classroom. I mean, that's pretty incredible when you think about it. Think about all these rural counties in North Carolina, and it's like, wow, high-speed internet. I mean, I could be in Tarboro or Greene County, the little town of Snow Hill. I could be a quaint little Snow Hill Elementary School, and I have high-speed internet. And so does somebody in Cary or Alamance County or Mecklenburg. Yeah, well, it's pretty fascinating if you think about it. Then we have the RNC, chairwoman of the Republican National Committee, Ada Fisher. She says the RNC is outraising the Democrats $40 million. She said that she will not run again in 2020. So this is going to be an open seat, and it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with this. See who's going to run for this open seat in the next couple of years. There's probably I could probably list a bunch of candidates that could run. Zane Bunn, who was in the RNC Rules Committee for the convention in 2016. She's also, been leader of Republican Women. She's district chair. Kim Cotton West, again, district chair, very much in the NCGOP fold. Michelle Nix, current vice chair, former county chair. That's 3 right there. There's probably a few more, we'll see. Miss Fisher said that this is the best run state convention that she's ever been to. She's been to a bunch of them. And she said, too, that one of the reasons Trump lost was because, or he's making pretty good gains with African Americans, because Hillary called black men super predators, and she voted for the 3 strikes law when she was the U.S. Senator from New York. Now we have the chairman, Mark Brody, for the RNC. He got elected back in 2016. Now, these RNC chairperson election, they do them every 4 years at the state convention. So he'll be up again in 2020. From what I know, he's a very conservative, and he's done a pretty good job. And I don't think his race will be as contentious as the RNC women's seat will be, but we'll see. He said that the RNC, get this, they outraised their entire funding total from 2014. Okay, they outraised 2014 total in June of this year. Wow. I mean, 5-6 months ahead of time. That's very good. He says that he strongly opposes same-sex marriage, the right to, and he's pro-life, and it's also against taking God out of the platform. He said he'll always stand strong on those social issues, because, the day before I talked about, there was a young lady from Raleigh who tried to, liberalize the social views of the Republican Party. Thank goodness, thank the good Lord, too, that failed. Now we have Dallas Woodhouse, kind of giving the state of the party report. He said that $50 to $70 million is going to be needed for North Carolina to host the RNC convention in Charlotte. He said they're going to need 5,000 volunteers, and finally they took a big picture of all the delegates and all the delegates cheering, and they had a big banner in front of the delegates that said, "We're ready for 2020," as a way for the RNC to see that North Carolina really wants Charlotte, North Carolina wants the 2020 RNC convention. The only other city that's in the running is Las Vegas, and Las Vegas, they have it there. I've heard that they're going to have it in like 5 or 10 different buildings, and that even the main convention center in Las Vegas is actually booked up the same weekend that the RNC is scheduled to have their convention. Whereas in Charlotte, they can have it at the, I think it's called the Spectrum Center, where the Charlotte Bobcats play basketball team, the arena, and then right across the street is the Charlotte Convention Center. So between the two of those, there's plenty of room to do the convention, and also the meetings, the rules committee, the platform committee, that sort of thing before the convention too. So now we get to the good stuff, which is the business session. So, and let's see here. We're back to the planned organization. There was a big meeting that the planned organization committee had Friday night, right after the Friday afternoon session. And let's see. Basically, they said that there's no statement of purpose on the postcard announced an executive committee meeting. Postcard was sent out in April. There was an email sent out by Chairman Robin Hayes announcing the intent of meeting for endorsement, but that was an email. That was not an official, meeting notice, because under the planned organization, you have to actually mail out a meeting notice for an executive committee meeting. You just can't email it or post on Facebook or fly by night, So there's 2 options in order to have a legitimate executive committee meeting where you can endorse a judicial candidate. Option 1 is you send out a new meeting notice. You mail it out on Monday, June 11th, and for a meeting that you can have in 2 weeks. Or there's option 2, which is saying the notice of purpose requirements of Article 9H3 in the plan of organization is waived for just the executive committee meeting on Sunday morning, June 10th. Now we have point information where Celia Wasserman of Craven County says, how many executive committee members are present at the convention today? And the chair says, well, the chair's experience, executive committee meetings right after the convention are better attended than the ones that are held, separate from convention. Now we have guys speaking in opposition to the motion, and that's Jim Womack of Lee County. Many members cannot attend this weekend because of graduations and would like to participate. The filing period is not here yet and will cause less interest in future elections. And then we have supporting the motion to have the judicial endorsement on Sunday, June 10th, is Michelle Nixon. She said, everyone had noticed. The candidates have traveled here and have made calls to the executive committee members. If we do not endorse tomorrow, then somebody who's outside the party could have access to our data. A Rhino or Democrat Light could have access to the data. And then we have opposition. Lisa Baldwin of Buncombe County said, let's see, the filing period does not begin until June 18th. It is unethical to endorse candidates before filing period. All of my NCGOP emails go to spam, but I did get the postcard without the meeting notice. So Miss Baldwin need to, get somebody to fix your email there, dear. Point of information. There's a point of information that says judicial candidates can change their party affiliation the day of filing. Legislative candidates, however, have a 3-month waiting period, and we are obligated to give data to all Republicans. That's from Dallas Woodhouse. Chairman Miller said the executive committee could change the policy, though, to withhold information. We have a motion of support by Rick of Randolph County. He said, we passed an amendment similar to this yesterday. The vote was 89% to 11%. So then they're going to have another vote now. And let's see here. The amendment to the plan of organization to allow endorsements at Sunday's executive committee meeting. Now, because the amendment was brought to the floor and not processed by the plan of organization committee, 2/3 vote of the convention body is needed to vote yes in order to pass this. And it got 84%, well above the 66% needed for this plan of organization committee change to pass. Okay, let's see here. We have resolutions. There's a resolution on Billy Graham, adopted without objection. Kate's Law, adopted without objection. And then we have industrial hemp support. Said the maker of the resolution said that my family's in tobacco farming. Hemp is used for making clothes. This could be the savior for the tobacco industry. And the resolution passed by a vote of 80% to 20%. And then we have recess for lunch by Michelle Nix at 12:10. So that is the Saturday morning session of the 2018 NCGOP convention.